كمل بسرعة.
The coroner performing the autopsy was horrified to discover that the mummy sold by artifact smugglers was extremely strange. Not only was the mummy's skin still elastic, but its body showed no signs of embalming at all. At first the coroner thought the smugglers had bought a fake mummy, but just as he prepared to examine it further, he was horrified to see the mummy inside the sarcophagus suddenly open its eyes. Moments later, a strange insect crawled out of its mouth. Everyone at the scene trembled in fear after witnessing this horrifying sight. They immediately reported the incident. After an investigation, a shocking truth finally surfaced. The mummy was actually Lucy, a girl who vanished 20 years ago. But what exactly happened to turn her into this terrifying state? 20 years earlier, Lucy was playing in the backyard, when a strange woman suddenly appeared beside the fence. The woman smiled and handed Lucy an apple. But the moment Lucy took the apple, the woman began chanting a bizarre spell. Suddenly an insect crawled out from inside the apple, and crawled straight into Lucy's mouth. Inside the house, her father had no idea something terrible had happened, but when he went into the backyard looking for her, he discovered the wire fence had been torn apart, and Lucy had completely disappeared. John instantly realized something was wrong. He immediately climbed through the fence and ran into the nearby streets. John desperately shouted his daughter's name everywhere, but he could not find Lucy anywhere. Just as John began to lose hope, he spotted a blurry figure carrying Lucy in the distance. John instantly sprinted after them with all his strength, but a violent sandstorm suddenly swept through the streets. The entire street instantly fell into chaos. Terrified pedestrians ran in every direction. It felt as if some mysterious force was stopping John from reaching her. After the sandstorm finally settled, John and his wife Ellie rushed to the nearby police station. But after hearing John's story, the sheriff realized Lucy had likely been abducted. John begged the sheriff to send officers out immediately, believing they could still find Lucy if they moved quickly enough. But the sheriff calmly warned them that missing children rarely came back. John was furious after hearing this. Yet just as the sheriff predicted, Lucy vanished forever from that day on. In order to escape the pain of losing their daughter, John and his family eventually moved to America. However, 20 years later they suddenly received a call from Egypt. The caller claimed that Lucy had finally been found. John was completely shocked. They quickly packed their belongings and rushed to Egypt. But when they arrived at the hospital and met the doctor solemnly warned them to prepare themselves mentally.
Katie has suffered extensive thermal trauma, likely from a lack of light and extreme malnutrition. She's locked in a deep catatonic state, which is causing her to make erratic and extreme movements, repeating abrupt noises, strange physical tics.
After hearing the doctor's explanation, Ellie completely broke down, unable to imagine what her daughter had suffered through. Once they calmed down and entered the hospital room, the moment they saw Lucy's current condition, the couple completely collapsed in despair. At that moment, the officer handling the case informed them that Lucy had been discovered inside a basalt sarcophagus. Several days earlier, a man was repairing his bicycle by the roadside when he witnessed a plane crash before his eyes. He immediately rushed to the crash site. The entire area was covered in wreckage and debris. Just as the man was about to call the police, he spotted a mysterious sarcophagus deep in the nearby forest. It was obvious the sarcophagus had fallen from the plane. After receiving the report, the police quickly arrived at the scene. At first the police believed it was a case of artifact smuggling, so they invited archaeologists to study the sarcophagus. However, the sarcophagus had no inscriptions, and experts could not identify its origin. In order to uncover the truth behind it, the police decided to open the coffin. But when the experts examined the mummy inside, they discovered it was perfectly preserved. Its skin still remained strangely elastic. The experts were amazed by how perfectly preserved the mummy was. But just as they prepared to continue their research, the mummy inside the coffin suddenly came back to life. Hearing this, John looked completely confused. The female officer explained that smugglers were likely using ancient Egyptian artifacts to cover up human trafficking operations. After learning the truth, John begged the officer to help find the people who kidnapped his daughter and bring justice to Lucy. Soon afterward, they brought Lucy back home. But the moment Lucy's grandmother saw her appearance, she immediately began reciting prayers. What no one expected, however, was that the prayers triggered a violent reaction from Lucy. Her body suddenly levitated and twisted into an unnatural angle. Then Lucy collapsed onto the bed and began convulsing violently. John immediately rushed forward and held Lucy down tightly. Moments later, they injected her with a sedative. Only then did Lucy slowly calm down. But after witnessing Lucy's terrifying behavior, John began to sense something deeply wrong. He went into the study and opened the files provided by Egyptian authorities. The documents contained photos of the sarcophagus and the cloth wrapped around Lucy. The cloth was covered with ancient Egyptian symbols he could not understand, but while John was investigating the truth, he suddenly heard strange noises coming from inside the walls, as if something was crawling within them. John immediately became worried about Lucy, and went to check on her room, only to find Ellie asleep beside the bed, while Lucy herself had vanished. Remembering the strange noises, John quickly woke his wife up. The two desperately searched the entire house for Lucy. Eventually they discovered her hiding inside a space within the walls. Lucy was curled up in the darkness, while continuously stuffing insects into her mouth. John and Ellie immediately rushed over and pulled the insects from her mouth. But the terrifying events were far from over. The real nightmare had only just begun. If you were John, would you continue trying to save your daughter, or would you choose to end everything with your own hands?